Thank you, Rafi-uddin Shikoh, for joining us today. Just for people tuning in, I'm MD of DinarStandard. I'm editor for Salaam Gateway. And today we're interviewing Rafi-uddin Shikoh, who's the CEO and Managing Director for DinarStandard. Firstly, we have to get the whole disclaimer out because DinarStandard is the company that manages Salaam Gateway. So effectively, Rafi is my boss, which is nice that I get to interview him and all of you get to watch what happens. Thanks, good. Rafi. And are you in Dubai?
I am in Dubai, and in a complete lockdown quarantine, whereby we have to actually get a permit to even go walk out to the market or anything. It's very strict. The government here has taken very clear and strong measures to ensure people are practicing strict social distancing and staying at home.
We're in our second day in Singapore in lockdown. We have not quite reached that stage where people have to get permits. We've had teething problems, very long lines at the wet markets and supermarkets. Yeah. People are still panic buying. And in Singapore now, we have a new job title called Social Ambassador. The government's hiring these people to go around to try and get people to be socially distanced, tell them to go home. So all sorts of things are happening during this lockdown.
Yeah,
and inshallah, you and family are fine and safe there.
Alhamdulillah, and inshallah, same with you and to all the listeners.
Okay, so this series, we're doing Skype interviews for Salaam Gateway, is to address the COVID-19 lockdown. A lot of us across the world, not just in Islamic countries, everywhere, are observing lockdowns in various different stages. In Dubai and UAE, you're further along than we are here in Singapore. We interviewed Dr. Marco Tiemann yesterday, was in Malaysia, and they're in the third week already. So it's nice to be able to hear what each of us are going through, and we sort of learn on a personal level as well as at the the national level as well. So just to sort of introduce the work of DinarStandard so we can put things in context when we do talk to you, tell us exactly what DinarStandard does as a growth strategy, research and advisory company, and what kind of companies you do work with so that people can understand what kind of position you're in when you give analysis.
Sure. So we're no different than a management consulting firm. And increasingly, we're advising government entities, we're advising investment funds, including sovereign wealth funds. We're advising multinationals or industry players on, first and foremost, our big area, as you know, Emmy, that had really put DinarStandard on the map is the Islamic economy space. So driving our work through very strong and deep and comprehensive market research, market intelligence and analysis, and really thought leadership on how to make this space, the Islamic economy space, an investable space, and drive the success and growth, and really, with a mission to hopefully create brands and global success stories. So that's one of the key areas. And the second is government innovation. This is another area that we've been able to leverage our ability to do strong market intelligence work and thought leadership and advise governments on how to innovate. And with this COVID-19 environment, that's another area we're also looking at right now. So I'd say those are our two big areas.
Okay, so you're in a unique position in that sense. To speak to what's going on in the Islamic economy, the global Islamic economy, with regards to sort of key national level for certain governments and countries. And as well, your work involves looking at what's happening on the ground. So, you can sort of speak on a top line basis about what's happening on the ground in key Islamic economies. It's unfortunate that we can't cover like the whole world in terms of Islamic economy when we speak. We try to do that as usual. DS does the State of the Global Islamic Economy report every year that most people are familiar with. But just to start us off, just from your work with clients, and we won't name who they are, as consultants and as analysts looking at space, what kind of situation or position are we in now with regards to COVID-19 amid the lockdown?
Well, subhanallah, it's an incredibly chaotic time, I think, world over. Things are moving so fast, so fluid. There's so much uncertainty of, first of all, will and when this pandemic is going to end, and with what severity, and will it have a comeback at some certain point. So there's obvious implications across the global supply chain, across most every sector. And so, in our work, we have to look, when we talk about Islamic economy, we're part of the global economy. So the macro picture of what's happening is critical. And one of the things we've been looking at is which sectors are being hit the most versus others who are not as much. We're also looking at, are there any silver linings? Obviously, as being everyone's immediate focus is current crisis management, our safety, security of our the people and the communities, and hoping those who are vulnerable or are being hit with the virus, that they recover, and the whole supply chain, as you know, around the medical equipment and the PPEs, etc. But at a government level, obviously strategic, a lot of strategic thinking is happening on the medium-term impact to jobs, unemployment, as you see stimulus packages across the world, most every country, even not just developed, but developing countries, emerging economies, are all having to bring this into play because people are starting to lay off, companies are starting to lay off, and in the near future, this is a crisis that governments are looking. So, and then the medium term of when and inshallah, this will end. When this happens, how will the new normal, as the terms being used, look like? So when we even come back, will the world be different? How different? How will it affect the businesses that are happening today? The supply chains, will countries put in additional measures, new measures? Will what we do as business today really change? And so, yeah, so I think there is this, there's so much information, there's so much and things are moving so fast that governments are really, for consulting firms like us, really are getting a lot of requests. So we're—
what are they asking for specifically?
So within the, so two things, as I said, we do the broader government innovation work as well. And in that context, it's really looking at where are these silver linings. So as we come out of the immediate crisis, as the governments are dealing with the immediate crisis, what's the medium-term opportunity area? So where can new areas emerge? So for example, so to answer your question, that's what they're looking at. Where at a national level would we pursue the economic resurgence or coming back of the economy? And specifically in our work of government innovation, where are the innovative areas? So, for example, we're seeing e-commerce. People are seeing tremendous boom in e-commerce. I mean, we knew that was already happening, but I think the dependence on digital and the digital transformations that companies are having to really consider, not just companies, governments, in terms of serving the communities and the citizens and residents. So the dependence and the implications of digital transformation, digital commerce is as an incredible area. And so how do you play in it? And where do you bring and remove the dependencies of the physical? I mean, physical trade has to happen on tangible products, but even that is getting affected by automation, more robotics, perhaps through the manufacturing, through the supply chain. Today there's real numbers that truck delivery, that last mile delivery services are getting affected. Yes, we think that e-commerce is the answer, but the last mile is having its own problems, meaning the trucks are not available, truck drivers are not available. So delivery is also getting disrupted. So that's the looking at where are the opportunities emerging. And The other aspect from a halal economy, Islamic economy point of view is, for us, a good sign is that, in terms of our work in Saudi Arabia, in Indonesia, in UAE, Malaysia, Nigeria even, which are some of the largest Islamic economies, there is, continues to be, and our work continues to have, we're not, the projects are not getting canceled and we're getting new engagement requests around looking at the halal economy as a source for economic diversification. And in particular, because one of the potential new normal would be that a lot of countries would be looking at domestic production, securing the supply chain closer to the markets rather than having long dependencies of markets further away. So this is giving impetus to look at the halal economy space, and we are actively, I'd say we are getting busier, alhamdulillah.
Alhamdulillah. But this has been going on for a while now. I mean, especially if you look at the oil exporting countries, Saudi Arabia, UAE have been working on diversifying their economies for some time. And specifically for the UAE, Dubai has been leading that Islamic economy strategy since 2013. In terms of getting to be self-sufficient, for example, in Saudi Arabia, poultry is a very big sector, it's the biggest protein. And they've succeeded immensely in bringing up the numbers of, for poultry production so that they are a lot more self-sufficient and they don't have to import so much. So this has been going on for a while in a lot of these countries, even Malaysia and Indonesia. Indonesia with the, for cattle, for instance, they're trying to do that. It's been going on for many years. So with that, are you saying now that with the pandemic and with the lockdown, everybody realizing this, are they speeding things up by quite a lot?
Right. And I think that's the right characterization. It is, you're right. So a lot of these economies have been looking at diversification, domestic industrialization, but the speeding up is I think the operative word. Governments are, I see in our work, are prioritizing different things and deprioritizing. And this is coming up. Digital transformation, looking at new, where are the areas that are going to emerge, e-commerce, B2B or B2C, digital media, e-learning. So, I think there's a broader theme of digital transformation. So everyone in technology, cybersecurity, I mean, these are all things that are these are all strategies in play before, but I think now the urgency is, they all have to be on it now, today, as with the lockdown. So, and similarly from an economic diversification point of view, I think it's speeding up because the uncertainty of supply chains that will result, you already know countries are limiting exports, which severely puts those who are import dependent in terms of food security and even other products, medical supplies, as pharmaceutical products in particular are also a big concern. You gave the example of Saudi Arabia in poultry, and indeed, I think over 50% of domestic production.
I think it's up to 60% now, I think.
That's right. And the challenge is, nevertheless, Saudi Arabia today is still the #1 importer of halal products. So the size of the wider full category of imports is significantly high. And same in UAE and most of the OIC countries, in fact. What is the flip side of it is that when you look at the top exporters, that's where the interesting, the realization is becoming real, is the fact that top 9 of the 10 exporters of halal products today worldwide are non-OIC countries. So a lot of these countries are thinking, whoa, why can't we at least take a slice of just even the halal market? And even within GCC, UAE, Saudi Arabia, yes, you would say, well, you can't really grow rice or crops or a lot of the categories, but But there are a lot of categories of products, especially processed and value-added propositions that these markets can play in. They are just now, strategizing and putting the investment plans in play, and having the backing at a government level to have a cohesive strategy to also work with the regulators. So that aspect of the hurdles are also addressed, which are, surprisingly, while speaking of Saudi Arabia, while Saudi Arabia, you would say, well, any product from Saudi Arabia should be accepted in this $250+ billion halal trade import and export market, or actually just products being imported into OIC countries related to halal. But actually, some of Saudi products, for example, are not even accepted in Pakistan, because the certification process and regulations have not been in place, but they are now coming online.
That's interesting. This is another sector. This is another area. Always a huge thing in the halal industries is regulation and certification. Do you think, looking at the governments that you work with and your corporate clients and maybe even smaller companies as your clients, do you see the COVID pandemic and now lockdown changing the mindset of halal regulators and certifiers? Will we ever come a lot closer, because this has driven us to realize and understand that, good Lord, this is the time to do it. If ever, we have to do this now.
Well, and you have been.
You're smiling like this.
I think I'm a very optimist person, but having seen the trajectory of how harmonization of halal has been going worldwide, I'm not too hopeful that this is going to even have that impact. But if it does, it will be great. I think today there are certain things happening. In Saudi Arabia in particular, there was a new decree where now there's a lot more clarity on how within Saudi Arabia, the different entities will play a role. And Saudi Arabia is also chairing SMEEC.
Yeah.
And I think I see that as a path towards this. We already have UAE, Malaysia, Indonesia, and some of the other markets really taking a leadership role and working towards, harmonizing worldwide, because it's not helping anyone, right? It's just really collectively hurting the opportunity in this context. But I think coming back, I still see that as not the main driver. I think the main driver is still the economic ability, the ability to industrialize those categories. If, for example, UAE, and you talked about UAE's strategy since 2013, His Highness Sheikh Mohammed's vision, but it's really been focused a lot more on Islamic finance and more on the services side. But when you talk about trade and manufacturing, we're seeing that is now being taken as a priority as well. So I think, you have to really look at it at a product competitiveness level. I mean, what would make products from Indonesia, UAE, Saudi Arabia be competitive in the market? I think I still see the compliance is not actually the main issue, because that affects everyone equally. What is not affecting everyone equally is what can each market do in terms of their competitiveness. Potential,
So we're talking at this top level and governments needing to diversify and everything. But if lockdowns continue beyond, let's say, 30 days, a lot of SMEs are not going to be able to survive. We're talking about survival for a lot of the small companies. In a country like Indonesia, where MSMEs are about 99% of the volume of businesses, this is going to be catastrophic, if it continues and persists. So it's all fine and good to say, the governments are thinking about doing this. They're going to speed up industrialization for halal production clusters, etc. But if we're going to lose a lot of SMEs, who is going to do that? Who's going to do the job of reviving sectors, of accelerating these kinds of sectors that are needed for diversification and sort of self-sufficiency?
I think, I'll say something that may seem quite out there, But what this COVID-19 is also accelerating is a world that will be more and more automated, and a world that will have less and less jobs for people. And where this is something that global leaders such as Elon Musk or Jack Ma from Alibaba and others have also been talking about, is the role of AI and automation, whereby jobs will be automated. And I think COVID-19 is going to have, you're talking about the immediate impact of people losing jobs with the lockdown, right? But I think what this will, and the reason why I bring this up is one of the effects of this will be, there will be a fast track towards further automation, right? You can see that. And which means, what about jobs? And so, because, the mom and pop stores or the businesses may, may be disrupted by this constant worry of, this continuation of a pandemic longer term, or things coming back, or similar things happening. And so the bigger question is, and you can see certain countries now going towards concepts such as universal basic income. So I think there are some fundamental, and this is part of our government innovation broader work, is what governments really need to think about, because this is not about, just solving it in the same way that we were solving it before. I mean, this really needs some, out of the box, innovative thinking, because the world is changing anyway, and it's just getting accelerated because of what's happening with the pandemic. But immediately coming back, I know we are hearing from a lot of medium and small businesses from the economy space who are laying off people. I mean, they're anyway small teams, but they're laying off. Especially hit are our hospitality travel sectors, travel agents, hotels, hospitality sector, the most hit, right? And then you have recreation, but that's, not really. I mean, I'm talking about, gyms and parks and movies, etc. But the immediate impact, and what we have to really look at is how can, and as DinarStandard, we're going to be announcing a series of hackathons. How can, as SMEs, these SMEs look to start even pivoting? Inshallah, things will come back. But if this gets extended longer term, what from your existing assets you can utilize? You may have an audience base, you have a customer base who is loyal to you for the services that you offer. What can you provide that audience with that is needed today? Again, this is also not something that will, create a cash flow right away. But I think SMEs have to also think of at this level, because, you have to solve, you can't wait for the government to solve for you. You have to solve, these are entrepreneurs, right? So they will look to innovate and pivot. And so I think looking at where are the opportunities, e-learning is a big area. We see a lot of events now, live events, event managers switching to paid live events. So I think you just have to see what is working and how can you pivot to that is one area for SMEs to really look at.
Who's most at risk right now, and who stands the most to gain from the situation?
So
it's a horrible thing to ask, but I think
well, I mean, that's reality, right? Unfortunately, and it's part of a natural evolution of business anyway. I mean, we face this day in, day out as any business proposition, and you have to be relevant. We're just having to be relevant in a very abrupt way and adjust our relevance because things have completely, there's been a seismic shift. So the most hit, as I said, certainly the travel hospitality sector, especially as it vis-a-vis our Islamic economy. Islamic finance, banks and financial services are, when you look at the valuation of the top 3,000 or 5,000 financial institutions worldwide, or any sector institutions worldwide, financial services are being hit a lot. But there is digital. side of things. So this will move fintech. I think fintech is, you're seeing acquisitions happening worldwide right now. Just 3 announced yesterday, in terms of out of US and many others. So while traditional financial institution, Islamic finance, will definitely be hit and is being affected, those who have done digital transformation, they're also, digitally native fintech propositions, from banking to wealth management, so forth. I think that's a direction, and not saying everything is getting affected, so everyone is getting a hit, but it's a relative question you ask. E-learning, education, anything related to digital aspect. While we see media, movies and parks and gyms getting affected, but now digital media is taking off. A lot more interest, and we see it, as in our media space as well, because when companies had budgets to go and spend on events, marketing, and trade show, now they realize they need to still continue to attract clients and customers, especially if they have a digital proposition, and so it's getting directed toward digital media. So digital media, recreation, the numbers are, people are watching more of subscribed live TV subscriptions or formats like Netflix. So even Islamic economy related propositions or those will and are seeing relative stability versus complete shutdown or complete distressed situation.
Thanks. Do you have any last comments for every one of us in lockdown? What we can do now so that we emerge in a better position? Well,
we're in the spirit of the Islamic economy. It would be amiss to not recognize the spirit of this segment, which is, there's a beautiful hadith of the Prophet who said that if the hour starts to happen and in the hand of one of you is a palm shoot or seeding, then if he's able to plant it before the hour happens, then let him plant it. It's a Sahih hadith. And it's a great reminder for all of us to be hopeful, to not be bogged down by anxiety. I think we have great tools and great reliance on God, and that gives us the recognition that this is from God as well. And our role right now is, in fact, even more important in terms of what value we can add to humanity, as businesses, as charity, as individual human beings. So I think I would leave with that. This is what's inspiring us. I think this is a time for us to step up. Maybe this is a time for the Islamic economy to step up and have a huge impact in giving support to the rest of the world and really serve the purpose that we're supposed to serve.
Thank you, Rafi-uddin Shikoh, CEO and Managing Director for DinarStandard.
Thank you, Ami. Thank you so much, and take good care of yourself.
Inshallah, same to you.